Welcome to the 260 Journey. Today is the story of a real crazy conversion in Luke 19. But in order to get the full understanding of it, we have to read something from the chapter before about a crazy miracle of the healing of a blind man before we get to the conversion of a real small rich man. Luke 18:35 says this, as Jesus was approaching Jericho. Notice those words, Jericho, because we're going to have to come back to that. A blind man was sitting by the road begging. The blind man's name was Bartimaeus. He is healed by Jesus despite everyone telling him not to ask, and ask Jesus to do anything for him. And then he says in the last verse of chapter 18, he says these words, immediately he regained his sight and began following Jesus and glorifying God. Remember that the chapters in the Bible are put in by man around the 13th century. So I think this is a running story to connect 18 and 19. So let's connect the two stories, and I don't think this is too far-fetched. We go right into Luke 19, and remember, the blind man is following him, and verse 1 says, Jesus enters into Jericho, and we know who's going with him. Jesus was approaching Jericho, and now he entered in, and there was a man called there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. Zacchaeus was trying to see who Jesus was and was unable because of the crowd, for he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead, climbed up into a sycamore tree in order to see him, for he was about to pass through that way. When Jesus came to that place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for today I must stay at your house. And he hurried and came down and received him gladly. When they saw it, they all grumbled, saying, he is gone to be the guest of a man who's a sinner. Zacchaeus stopped and said, Lord, behold, half of my possessions I will give to the poor. If I've defrauded anyone of anything, I'll give them back 4 times as much. And Jesus said to him, today, Zacchaeus, salvation has come to your house, because he too is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which is lost. I learned these thoughts from reading something from the great American evangelist D.L. Moody when he wrote these words. Listen to this. He said, pardon me now if I draw a little on my own imagination. Bartimaeus gets into Jericho because remember, he's walking with Jesus, and he says, I'm going to go see my wife and children and tell her what happened. And here's what D.L. Moody says. The young convert always wants to talk to his friends about what has happened. Away he goes down the street there in Jericho, and he meets a man that passes him and goes on a few yards and then turns around and says, Bartimaeus, is that you? Yes, it's me. Well, I thought it was, but I could not believe my eyes. You can see what happened. I just met Jesus of Nazareth outside the city and asked him to have mercy on me. Jesus, is he coming? Is he nearby? He's here in Jericho, Bartimaeus said. I want to see him, said the rich tax collector. And so Zacchaeus starts running down the street, but he cannot see him due to the crowds. He stands on his toes, but no chance. He is too small, so he climbs up into a sycamore tree. This is great. If I can get to that branch there, I know I can get a good view. That must have been a very strange sight to see. A rich man climbing into a tree like a little boy, hiding among the leaves where he thought nobody would see him, so he can get a glimpse of the passing stranger that everybody has been talking about. That's what D.L. Moody said. Think about this. He was small and there was a tree and he was desperate. And when you are desperate, you will do whatever it takes to get what you want or what you need. A little boy told his father one time, I want a new bike. The father said, in this house, we pray and ask God for things we want and need. That night, the little boy prayed, Dear God, I need a new bike. The next morning, the little boy woke up, ran to the garage, no bike. Little boy prayed the same prayer the next 3 nights with no results in the garage, 0 bicycles. On the 4th day, while playing at his grandma's house, he found a small statue of the Virgin Mary. He carefully wrapped the statue in tissue paper, put the statue in a shoebox, and that night as he prayed, he said this prayer, Dear God, if you ever want to see your mother again, you know what I need. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Whether you're kidnapping Jesus' mom or you're a rich man climbing into a tree, those are desperate measures. I think the key verse of this rich man's conversion to me is verse 5. Listen to verse 5 again. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for today I must stay at your house. Think about this. He looked up, he said, Zacchaeus, hurry, come down, for today. All these phrases are packed with power. Let me just give you a few of them. He looked up, which means Jesus noticed him. There was a shepherd bringing home his sheep. As they come in at night, he counts them all. Like Jesus, the great shepherd is. He's counting them 1, 2, and then he gets to 99 and realizes one is missing. I ought to have 100 here. I must have made a mistake. And he counts again. There's only 99, and he must have lost one. He doesn't say, let him learn his lesson, or I'll see what happens in the morning. No, the shepherd takes the place of the seeker. He goes out and hunts the one that is lost, and he lays it on the shoulder and carries it home. The sheep does not find the shepherd. It's the shepherd that finds the sheep. It was the shepherd who rejoiced, not the sheep. People talk of finding Christ, but really it's the opposite. He finds us, and he found him, Zacchaeus, in a tree. And he even used his name. He said Zacchaeus. It looks like Jesus is walking right by, and he stops and says, Zacchaeus. Can you imagine Zacchaeus thinking, who told him my name? I was never introduced to him, but always remember, he knows us. He always knows us. Always remember this, us who are sinners, Christ knows all about us. He knows our name, and it was personal for Zacchaeus. And then he says these words, hurry, come down, for this day, today. Proverbs 27:1 says, boast not yourself of tomorrow, for you know not what a day may bring forth. Spurgeon said it like this, if you were sick, would you send for a physician tomorrow? If your house were on fire, would you say fire tomorrow? If you were robbed in the street, would you cry, stop thief tomorrow? No, Spurgeon said, but man is foolish in the things that concern his soul. Unless divine and infinite love shall teach him to number his days, he will still go on boasting about tomorrows until his soul has been destroyed by then. The great mischief of most men is that they procrastinate. It is not that they resolve to be damned, but that they resolve to be saved tomorrow. It's not that they reject Christ forever, but they reject Christ today. They might as well reject him forever as continue perpetually to reject him now. Spurgeon then closes with this, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Oh, you that linger. Pull up the paving stones, hurl them at the devil's head. He is ruining you. He is decoying you into your destruction. Tomorrow, 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 he says, never comes. It is in no calendar except the calendar of fools. And then finally, something in this story crazy happened at the man's conversion, which made it real. Listen to verse 8. Zacchaeus stopped and said to the Lord, behold, Lord, half of my possessions I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I'll give back 4 times as much. Listen close. You know it's a conversion when it reaches a man's wallet. No offering was asked. No money was requested. When something happens in the heart, something always happens on the outside. That's Zacchaeus. That's Luke 19. And this is the 260 journey.